Hi everyone, I know this is a different type of video for today, but I'll fill y'all in on what's going on, why I'm here talking about rivals and not playing rivals. So recently I've been doing my best to make rivals montages and funny videos for everyone, and one day at work I was doom scrolling on TikTok during my break, and I came across a content creator named Beamin Bandit. She's a pretty well followed individual that seems to care a lot about rivals to an interesting degree and has done several rants, takes, and about certain topics, some being about toxicity in the community, best healers in rivals, and today's topic in question, the triple support meta. Ladies and gentlemen, don't get me wrong, I'm not here to disrespect her or anything, maybe a little bit of the sort, but I'm just going to put belt to ass on the whole mindset which she has, which frankly I could speak for most people, mostly for me maybe. She's kind of annoying.
Lewis! Mom!
So before I fully get into my rant, let me play her clip about the triple support meta.
So everyone cried about Sue and Gambit because they were so OP, and then they get nerfed for Season 6. But what these crybaby DPS players don't get is the more that you nerf the strategist healing output,
the longer we're going to stay in a triple support meta.
So instead of changing heroes like Mantis and Adam to be able to work in a dual support comp, their kits stay mid and either never get played or they only work in triple support. So now what you guys have to deal with is an overworked Cloak and Dagger kit. I've been averaging between 50k and 70,000 healing on Cloak and Dagger since her buff. And because of that, Cloak and Dagger is a necessity on every single comp team. So if you have a bad Cloak and Dagger, your team is going to default to triple support. I've always said that the dumbest nerfs in a game like this is nerfing a healer's healing output. Why? And then they buff a healer to the point where if you don't have one on your team, it's like an automatic loss. So why doesn't everyone just stop fucking crying and learn how to play the game like a team, peel for your backline, and then the support role won't be all over the place like this? I don't know about you guys, but this is the most unstable the strategist role has felt since the game came out.
Man, I gotta really say, I've never seen a more clueless support player in all of Rivals. Like, truly, I'm not trying to insult her. Statement is just wrong. And I'll be glad to explain myself why. By the time of this video being live, the game has been out for over a year, and God, the game's great. Not trying to glaze it, but anyone can agree, Season 6 of Rivals, the support balance is it's more or less stable in my opinion. Don't get me wrong, characters like Adam Warlock and Ultron, possibly Mantis, are still garbage, in most people's opinion. But the problem with the triple support is mainly from the absence of role queue, quote unquote. Now the devs have made it clear they will not add role queue. I'm gonna repeat that one more time. They will not add role queue. And I think it's perfectly fine, since I love the freedom of choosing anyone to do whatever setup in the game. And to also mention, queuing time is amazing with it being almost instantaneous loading at times. I do also want to mention, Flats has recently mentioned why role queue would be a bad idea. I'm not going to touch upon what he said because I'm just going to be repeating what he said. So I'll just play the clip right here. From what I've seen over this game's lifespan, supporter power has been an absolute roller coaster of buffs, nerfs, and reworks to also add insult to injury. So let's start at Season 1 of balance changes. So first off, we started off with Cloak and Dagger receiving their first buff, and it's a cooldown decrease on a move, sorry about that, and a tweak to their ultimate, adding a 4th dash of healing. I remember clearly they did add a 4th dash of healing. Now, I do want to mention this about Cloak and Dagger's snail trail on the ult. Back then, if I remember correctly, it was stackable. So you could just stack the trails on each other and they would increase the healing rate. Jeff, they reworked the space of how he eats people with his ultimate and his primary fire increased in healing power. I do remember that they Jeff's munch was such a gigantic hitbox. You literally could be at least 3 paces from the red circle and you'd still get swallowed, because that's not where the hitbox was. On top of that, flying characters could easily just be eaten too, because the dome was gigantic. Luna's buff changes during her ult was made, so that she couldn't spam heal and the buff effects rapidly. That's what they changed. I do remember if you could spam quickly enough between the two, you could get both, and no one would die. Mantis got a nerf, which reduced the movement speed on buffed allies, and Rocket increased his healing output as well. Personally, not too bad of changes for healers, and to also mention, I won't be talking about team-up abilities or the duelists or the tanks changes. I'll somewhat mention things, but not fully right now, just to quickly move on. So, mid-season patches came along later on. They were Adam received more damage on his hit scan shot and a small heal increase to his soul bond. Cloak and Dagger, once again, this is the second time they get something. They increased the ult cost, and the heal output of the snail trail on the was slightly changed. So the trail no longer stacks, and the lasting increase of the buff on the dark kern, the terra kern, I think that's what it's called. Sue got an increase in ult, Loki got an increase in ult and got an additional ammo buff, and Luna got an increase in ult, with a later patch dropping again for only Cloak and Dagger, increasing the healing output again. I'm not gonna say specifically what it was, it's just more healing. Just to quickly bash on Beamin Bandit, I really want to mention this, but clearly that's the character she's glazing mainly, and recently complained about the nerf of healing on Cloak and Dagger output. Was it Cloak and Dagger output? Well, basically she talked about how they nerfed healing on some of the healers, not from this last patch I just mentioned, but she blamed the DPS players for the nerf happening, which is not the case at all. Trust me, anyone that has played and seen and understood the balance changes will understand the dynamic development supporters have and have gotten, and mainly one thing can come only to mind. That is, the DPS and tanks players won't peel for people. That I understand so far, hearing Beamin's argument right now. Moving on to Season 2 balances. I will say this, as a tank player myself, it is, without a shadow of a doubt, a very hard role to play. Not because the tanks are difficult to play, but just people in this community, as of right now, if this video gets uploaded from my words, it is really hard to get a second tank player because no one wants to play tank because, quote-unquote, it is bland, it is boring, and, you know, you need a second tank to do peeling. You need one tank to frontline, and the second tank could also frontline, but they're also the peeler. So if something happens in the mid line, they're the ones who are supposed to turn around, even as far as going all the way to the back line. And that's usually the DPS job as well, to go into the back line. And that's from a Punisher main as well. Me right here. I do nothing more than backline because I enjoy fighting divers, and that's my forte. And so that's the one thing I will agree on with Beamin Bandit. So moving on to Season 2 balances. Adam nerfed Soul Bond was from 30 seconds to 40 seconds, and Adam's ult now only restores 30% of HP instead of full HP. Cloak and Dagger ult trails now despawn all together at once after the last trail's timer is up. Sue nerf, her shield was reduced in HP from 300 to 250, and Loki raised the cooldown on his healing circles from 25 to 30. Mantis reduced HP from 275 to 250 and got a heal buff and attack damage buff, or a attack buff I'm sorry, I'm butchering that word. The attack buff she can give out can now stack with each other. Rocket's healing orbs were reduced from 70 HP per second to 50 HP per second, but granted a new burst heal of a 55 HP on the first orb, and the orbs traveling faster. On top of that, his jet dash cooldown went from 6 to 10, and lastly, his ult damage boost goes from 40 to 25%. But it grants allies a 100 bonus shield while linked, and lastly, its ult cost goes from 3,700 to 4,000. That's a lot to say. Sorry about that. That's quite a few changes from the start of the season, but the dev team at the time was still on a 3-month season cycle, and we're slowly moving to a 2-month cycle. From what I see as of season 2 changes, changes are still being made in a reasonable manner while also optimizing support abilities. Course, Cloak and Dagger were very strong, still requiring a rework. How long her trails last. Later we would receive not a mid-season patch, but a late changes instead before the mid-season. When the mid-season patches did also arrive, it was roughly only 3 characters, so I'll just mention them all at once right now. Adam's primary fire can now when headshot, it reduces the cooldown of life stream by 1 second. Avatar life stream. Cloak and Dagger, they buffed Cloak's primary from 75 to 80, and Dagger's primary fire damage went from 15 to 18. Luna's adjusted fall-off damage went from 60 to 70%, and Mantis increased life energy blast from 50 to 55. The few set of changes that also followed, Jeff got the big rework to his kit, so I'm not going to mention all of it, because everyone knows about Jeff's entire rework, and a lot of Jeff players had mixed feelings. And Luna and Rocket getting another set of changes, so Luna ult increase ult increase healing and damage per round from 20 to 22. Absolute Zero grants 50 bonus shield upon hit, and her ult was increased from 4,500 to 5,000. Rocket, they took away that 55 HP bonus on the first tap to just 50 now. At the time, I do remember Luna was truly the more broken supporter than the rest of the lineup of healers at the time. Rocket players had to accept such a rough change, really, at the time. Luna dominating the support role since no other character really stood up to her alone or keep up with her healing. Beamin Bandit, as much as I hate to agree, made an interesting point on Luna's fall off later into the game's lifespan. So I'll play that clip particularly right here.
So everyone has been saying since the game came out that Luna Snow is the Marvel Rivals poster child. However, it seems that Cloak and Dagger, Loki, Sue, and Gambit are more desirable picks. Why? Why are we seeing less of Luna Snow? One of the more obvious answers is because Luna is hit scan, which requires you to aim. And Luna has the highest energy cost out of all the strategists for her ult, which is 5,000. Now, in my opinion, one of the more important things is that Luna only has one out. Her freeze. She could freeze the dive, cancel ults, and freeze whoever the team is focusing. Most people would say that Luna's self-snowflake isn't out, but I'm gonna have to disagree. Although it really was an amazing buff to her kit, she has to have someone to heal in order for the snowflake to heal herself. Think about it. Cloak and Dagger can drop her bubble or fade away. Sue has double jump and her shield. Gambit has 2 spin and dashes and his cards. Rocket has 3. He has 2 dashes and he can wall run. Jeff has 2 with his bubbles and he gets to go underground. Loki has 3. He could TP his lamps and his invisibility. And Deadpool has his healing AoE and dashes. Luna, unfortunately, is down here with Ultron, Adam, and Mantis. I mean, yeah, Ultron flies and he has a quick dash, but that's about it. Adam only has Soul Bond, and who wants to waste that on a dive? He should be using that on ults. And Mantis has a sleep, and she has to use one of her leaves to heal herself.
In my opinion, Season 6.5 is a really questionable set of changes, yet amazing. But it certainly does show the more supports that come to the game Older supports start to get a form of a rework, additional things added to their kit, but they do tend to outclass each other eventually, which is ideal from what I've heard in the making of this video. Luna is still a great support, she's just outclassed. Now let's move on to the Season 3 changes. Sue, her heal orb was boosted in healing and damage for a short time. Loki's ult was increased once again from 4,000 to 4,300. Mantis, her healing flower, gets a new effect that heals allies by 2.5% a second, and they reduce the base healing from 20 seconds to 12.5. They also increased her ult cost from 3,700 to 4,000, and increased the max bonus health from 100 to 150. Ultron, they nerfed his flight cooldown from 8 to 6 seconds, and they also reduced the firewall bonus HP from 75 to 65, and allies from 55 to 50. Now, to start off the season, it seems the devs nerfed quite a bit of the supporters, mostly in ult cost and also sitting down Ultron, since I do remember a bit Ultron came out pretty strong and was still strong even after the following season. But to refocus on the stats of the supporters, it seems they were still really damn strong and most likely trying to prevent a one-sided fight in matches. I remember it was also an indeed struggle having to constantly deal with the supports ulting every other few seconds. They were getting their meters so fast, so charged up. Like, I could even compare that to Moon Knight, how he constantly gets his ult every other 5 seconds. Now to hop into the mid-season changes. Mantis received a new team up, gaining a 10% healing boost. On top of that, they also reduced the healing flower healing from 12.5 seconds to 10 seconds. Reduced life energy blast from 20 to 15, and increased the conversion rate for her excess healing to bonus HP during her ult, and it goes from 0.7 to 1. Cloak and Dagger got an increase in ult being 4,000 to 4,300, and Adam's ult was actually reduced from 5,000 to 4,700. The ult has a new effect. When it revives allies, they gain bonus health equal to 70% of their max HP, only lasting for a brief time. His charge shot, not the primary fire, the cluster shots, now reduce Avatar Lifestream's cooldown by 0.3 seconds. And I mean every shot that hits. So he technically, I think, has 5 or 6 shots. So that's at least, I think, what did I say, like 2 seconds, which gets cooldown if you land all the shots. So not a whole lot of changes, but the biggest here was Cloak and Dagger getting nerfed, which was a big W at the time, since I cannot tell you how many times I always heard this chick yell, "Us against the world." Her ult was a bargain sale beyond dirt cheap to always get and always maintain push, or stall, actually. It was nearly impossible to deal with, and some people even wanted that ult to do less healing. If the devs didn't do something, I recall Beamin Bandit argued about nerfing a healer's healing output. Let me put the clip right here.
I've always said that the dumbest nerfs in a game like this is nerfing a healer's healing output. Why? And then they buff a healer to the point where if you don't have one on your team, it's like an automatic loss.
I would like to disagree, because when you have a Cloak and Dagger doing this much with no effort, it's truly a problem that everyone has voiced before, if not later on. The right kind of healing nerfs are to ones who are overtuned, like Cloak and Dagger were. Other healing changes that should be made are to people like Adam Warlock, because right now, Adam is in a really good support in a duo comp. Don't get me wrong, Adam can be a viable character, but it takes near perfection to duel with Adam. I'ma be real, even Quad, the Adam King, has said this.
But one thing I must mention about all of this is that none of it benefited his healing. Adam Warlock is now a triple support demon, but you still need to play absolutely perfectly when you're an A2 support comp. You still only really play in triple support spawn holds. This was definitely more of a floor buff than a ceiling buff. And honestly, I wish you had to charge your flight through getting headshots versus, just having it in neutral. But I'm not mad, Adam has movement.
So the way I see it, the devs are headed in the right direction with the support changes. Now let's roll on to the next set of changes. Sue has a greater slowdown effect from 30 to 50%. I forgot what it was. I apparently I never typed it in to what it was. The increased healing on her ult from 165 per second to 180. I assume the slowdown effect from 30 to 35 is from the ult. I think it is. A new effect. Yeah, actually, the new effect on the ult is slowing enemies down by 20%. Actually, no. Then, I regret to inform that I did not type that in. My bad. Moving on, Loki reduced clone healing and damage output from 100% to 80. And they also reduced ult shapeshift period from 15 to 12. Luna reduced ult duration from 12 to 10. Jeff ult now leaves a healing pool 8 meters wide that lasts 8 seconds. Ultron now does extra damage to bonus shield when he's using his ult. But then it goes back to regular damage. Mantis got a movement boost from Nature's Favor. Now it decays over 2 seconds instead of instantly ending. So taking a step back, it's easy to see the devs this time around chose certain supporters that were struggling and nerfed those who were dominating. Not much to really say besides people were probably still getting used to Jeff changes and at least helped out Ultron, so let's move on. Cloak and Dagger got another set of changes, increasing ult cost from 4,300 to 4,500. Jeff got his ability reduced, his passive anti-crit damage from 70 to 50%. Rocket's ult they increased his ult boost damage from 25 to 40. And Ultron reduced drone healing amount from 35 to 50 HP, and increased healing bonus from 10 to 5. They also increased ult cost from 3,400 to 3,700. Well, I could certainly tell Ultron got a slap to the face with that last patch being a buff and this one being a nerf. Jeff as well getting a sizable nerf that upset Jeff players once again. And on the chopping block being Cloak and Dagger. I can very well say this is the dev team have been trying to do something about the triple support comp. Truly, with this constant wave of nerfs to the supports and other supports catching strays, I can also say this, despite I have mentioned those balance changes, the DPS have been getting many buffs through their patches and such. Despite it being all triple support hasn't gone down at all, not even in the slightest bit. Let's head to the next set of changes for Season 5. Adam, his cocoon flight has been increased from 6 meters per second to 12 meters per second, and they also reduced his ult once again from 4,700 to 4,500. And they increased the revive's range from 30 to 35 meters. Rocket, they reduced his BRB cooldown from 45 to 40 seconds. They also increased his mag size from 5 to 7 and boost flight speed from 40 meters to 80 meters a second. They increased his minigun fire rate from 150 meters a second to 180 meters a second. Loki, they increased his base HP from 250 to 275. They also adjusted fall-off damage from 50 to 80% at 3 meters, and direct hits on allies now grant extra 10 HP. Sue, they increased Orb's flight speed from 120 meters a second to 150 meters a second, and hit damage from 25 to 30, and projectile max range from 30 to 35 meters. They also increased her force pull range from 30 to 35 meters, and now has the ability to be able to shield herself. Cloak and Dagger, they increased the base HP from 250 to 275. Now that's a lot of changes for only 5 characters, and these being mostly buffs and not nerfs. For once mostly Cloak and Dagger, having it being their first buffs in many seasons, now these buffs are for a main reason, and it's mostly because the tanks and DPS have been also getting a heavy amount of damage changes, including Punisher. They touched upon his base HP, his damage fall off, his shotgun damage, and Wolverine also getting a new tech as well. So yes, the supporters had to get buffs to keep up with the DPS and tanks. Now, here are the mid-season changes. Gambit, Sue, and Rocket, I'm gonna collectively say this, all three of them got an ult increase by 200. Rocket got a 300 point change on that. So everyone got an ult increase for those three. Loki increased damage and healing ratio from 80 to 90%. Luna can snowflake herself now, and snowballs fly faster now from 60 meters to 80 meters a second. Ultron, they increased his ult cost from 3,700 to 4,000, and now he can have 2 drones. The firewall now grants those with a drone 50 bonus HP with a 20% movement increase and a 10% damage boost, while Ultron gains a 65 bonus HP, and allies with no drone only get a 50 HP boost. Once again, we are back to nerfing supports besides Loki and Luna. I can still find the fact that Cloak and Dagger getting their ult nerf once again is hilarious to me. But hopefully she can now sit in a comfortable space now with all these changes that she received and from the past patches possible. I'm not sure, for whatever reason, they are stepping away from over nerfing the supports and focusing on the DPS and mostly dive. We are getting close to the end, ladies and gentlemen, to my ranting sesh of information. Heading into the sort of end of this list, I'd like to mention here are the changes, like the last recent changes, and I'm pretty sure this is between the 6 and 6.5, so it's just all of them. Cloak and Dagger, they reduced Dagger's storm healing from 55 per second to 45 per second. The Veil of Light and Terror Cape can now be used back to back, with each one taking 12 seconds to recharge. So basically, if you're playing Dagger, you can double kern, or if you're playing Cloak, you can double kern. So now it's just now it's no longer 1-in-1. Gambit, they reduced the impact healing explosion from 25 to 15, and they reduced the raging flush healing from 75 a second to 55 a second, and the boost bounce on a single target are now set to a max of 2. Sue reduced shield from 250 to 200, and reduced shield recharge rate from 42 per second to 34 a second. They also reduced shield self-healing from 50 per second to 25 per second. They also increased cooldown on Force Pull from 8 to 10 seconds. Rocket, they reduced his movement speed running along the walls from 10 meters a second to 8 meters a second. And Loki reduced mag size from 12 to 10. Ultron had an increase of a drone range from 30 to 35 meters. And Adam Warlock can now fly with a new ability, and he can also hover with Soul Bond. So between the start of the season and mid-season, Gambit was nerfed as everyone expected, and sadly Loki getting nerfed again. Like, seriously, I personally think Loki's fine where he is. I'm not sure an ammo nerf was needed, and of course Adam players can happily celebrate and rejoice with him being a decent healer now. But like Quad mentioned before, Adam is still isn't entirely viable on his own. Oh, I did forget to mention an emergency change happened. Gambit's they reduced his base health from 275 to 250, and Breaking Spades now grants 10% damage boost instead of 15. Along with Hawkeye Hela were also quickly nerfed. A very much needed change that ultimately didn't do much to stop Hawkeye from being a demon. Now that everything is said and done, what is my ideal opinion about the triple support plague in Rivals right now? Let me say this. In my complete honesty about this, and hopefully I can upload this before the start of Season 7, I think Rivals is headed in the right direction, adding more and more characters that are insanely unique. Their approach with the balance changes is alright. some characters are going to rush or run into a dry patch of irrelevancy, and that's okay. I'm a Punisher main, and I think I'm a really good Punisher. I like where he is standing right now, and I wouldn't want it any other way. Sure, maybe characters that are struggling due to irrelevancy, for example Hulk, will get a patch in the future. And sadly, triple support comps will be here, and it's permanent. It's a permanent thing. People need to let this go, and maybe get better at the game. Better their own skill set. I'm not asking the community they need to be top level players, but be more open-minded and adequate to yourself and everyone around you. The devs have already stapled the idea that role queue is not in the game's future. It won't happen. So my solution to this, just get better, play other characters, even look up strategies on how to fight against triple support and other characters. I myself, I go into practice mode every game session that I'm about to start, and I get on and I practice killing divers with the bots and landing headshots against Spider-Man, etc. etc. And I do see myself improving on these aspects of having my hand steady, aiming better. Sometimes if you want to be better, you gotta do the things to be better. You gotta practice, you gotta train yourself, you gotta build the habit of how you move around in the game. And you gotta stop relying on the devs to destroy the support characters, because dead ass, I know that's what the DPS and or tanks want for some reason, despite what was said earlier. I kinda do think that. And there is a balance between what I said and what needs to happen. So I know most of it might have been a tiny bit contradicting, but it's the fine lines you need to look into. One last note too is that Rivals is still a new game, and the devs are learning how to make these changes and move forward given the time they have, and I bet the game is going to find a decent space where it might be balanced. Who knows? Remember, ladies and gentlemen, the dev teams don't just look at the results from the Western region. Players have a whole different mindset in the Eastern region, okay? Keep that in mind. I don't have any numbers or graphs to show you what characters are a variety between the hemispheres, but please keep what I said in mind and play to get better. Try new characters and stop being so toxic when you know it's your fault, and if you're a Spider-Man going 5-13. This community needs to understand, if you're trying to learn a new character, we have bot matches for that reason, or the arcade modes too. And yet people ignore these games, despite that those are literal sandbox modes to learn a new character. That's all I really have to say, and I think I'll end it off here. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate. Leave a comment and leave a like. Or want any tips? I suggest joining my Discord server. I'll leave a link down below, and I'll see you all next time. And as always, happy gaming, assholes!
My life is the